So I'm sitting in a rental car in Denver, about to make the drive to Leadville, Colorado. Tomorrow, racing in the Silver Rush 50-mile trail race. And one of my family members asked me the other day, why would you even do that? That's just stupid. And I guess if you don't run, that does sound stupid. And probably I would have thought the same thing before I started running. But it goes back to this the sense of adventure that I think a lot of us want and maybe are missing out of lives. Our lives, the developed world, life can be pretty boring these days. The 9-to-5 job, the family, all that's great, of course, but maybe that element of danger and risk that maybe was present in a lot of our lives, in our ancestors' lives, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ago, is maybe not there these days. Doesn't mean that life isn't stressful, but so that's why. I can remember when I did my first 5K race in 1999, and I was so nervous and afraid. I was pretty sure I could do 5K, 3.1 miles, but didn't know what to expect and how bad it would hurt and when it would hurt and how would I fare compared to my competitors. And so today, it's the same thing. Don't know what to expect in a 50-mile race. With that much time on your feet, a lot of things can go wrong. Your nutrition, your gear, your shoes, the weather. And of course, nobody does a 50-mile run for their first race. It's a stepwise progression. You start with a 5K and you do a couple of those, and it's no longer a challenge, or maybe it's no longer scary, and so you want a bigger risk, and so that's when you bump up to a 10K, and then maybe you do a half marathon, and eventually you do a marathon, and so right now is the natural progression. It's 50-mile. It's odd. A few years ago, I would have thought, still even having done marathons and Ironman triathlons, that 50-mile running sounded very stupid. I guess part of it also is due to the fact that it's becoming sexy these days, and a lot of runners are doing it. It's the marathon is maybe considered easy now. It used to be the ultimate test of your endurance, and so now people are running 50-mile and 100-mile races. So that's why I've signed up, and there's going to be 300 or 400 other fellow crazy people at the start line tomorrow. The race starts at 10,000 feet, so that's 2 miles above sea level, and we're going to climb up to 12,000 feet twice, and then we're going to turn around and come back and do the same thing. So it'll be 4 times up to 12,000 feet and back. Anticipate a lot of walking, and a long day, probably 10 to 12 hours. Like I said, not really sure what to expect. The time limit's 14 hours, which is, I guess, if you can walk faster than, I don't know, maybe it's a 18-minute mile, something like that. I was just guessing in my head. Then you can finish it. So it seems pretty reasonable, although, again, scary. Lots of things can go wrong. I've got my little smorgasbord of food down here, and that's food for breakfast and, of course, all the meals, as well as what I'm going to use in the race. So kind of a hodgepodge here. Pickle juice, gels, there's some Tailwind, there's some electrolyte tablets, and then, of course, the aid stations, which we're going to see every 7 or 8 miles, are going to have some real food too, peanut butter and jelly and things like that. So nobody's going to want to be drinking syrupy gels for 12 hours. So that's it. Pretty excited. About to make that drive up the mountain. Sitting in Denver right now at about a mile above sea level, and got to go a mile to go, mile up. And so we'll check back in later.